Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, which means it is another edition of A Moment of Hope with Upward Transitions. This morning, we have the pleasure of having my friend Dan Billingsley with us. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good. We are so glad that you joined us this morning. I hear you're taking a moment out of a little bit of vacation to be with us, so even more special.
It is, although I have to tell you, it's one of those adult vacations. So yesterday I went and got my tags. Today I have to get a car. I have to do some cleaning. I am going to take a few days and go out of town, but it's pretty much one of those, these are the days I just have to get everything done that I've put off until 5 days in a row when I could get them done.
There you go. One of those do all the to-dos vacations.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for taking a moment to do this with us.
You bet.
So, Upward Transitions is a member of the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits, which you are so awesomely a part of. And I just find the resources that you all provide so amazing. I have worked in many other parts of the world, and I just have not experienced anything like this before. And so for those who do not know much about the center and what you guys do, tell them about who and what you are.
Yeah, on the very surface level, we're the state association of nonprofits, so we really represent the entire charitable sector. The 501c3s mainly that are public charities. We do have a few associations. We've got a few congregations, a lot of faith-based organizations. But really, our core services are going to be to public charities. So that's Upward Transitions, that's Sunbeam, that's all of those great programs that are out there that are really the lifeblood and lifeline for people here in Oklahoma. We know that we've got a lot of things we have to work on. I mean, we're bottom 10 in a lot of areas, and many times bottom 5. And it's our nonprofit sector that really has to pick up the slack for a lot of that. So we represent those public charities that are out there doing the work every day. But more so, I like to describe us as sort of the ultimate and walk-in clinic. Several years ago, I was talking with a man named Jerry Panis, who was, if you ever get a chance, please read his book called Asking, but it's Panas. And Jerry was truly the godfather of fundraising in this country. And I had this opportunity to spend just 10 minutes alone with him. And he asked me to describe what we do at the Center for Nonprofits. And he looked at me and he said, in some ways, you save nonprofits' lives. And when he said that to me, it made me realize, when people need help, you go see a doctor, you go see a therapist, whatever that may be. But nonprofits, when they need help, they come to us. And so when I say we're kind of like that walk-in clinic, I mean, you could come in and we've got the pharmacy where you can get your over-the-counter stuff. We've got a clinic where if you need to get advice, we'll give you that advice, and we'll even give you a prescription that you can go fill at our own pharmacy. And if you need emergency care, we're there for you. So we do everything from professional development to consulting work. We're really big in networking, and we're really starting to use this term belonging. You belong to a family when you belong to the Center for Nonprofits. So you not only have us, you have all those other nonprofit colleagues out there. And the fact is, we're a sector of experts. I can call 100 different people out at nonprofits, and they're going to be an expert on a subject. And that's what we love about it, is to network and have a sense of belonging to bring all those experts together. And then finally, of course, we do a ton of advocacy work, and we believe in nonprofits advocating for themselves, their missions, the people that they serve. It's hard work because it gets into government policy, but we have to do it. And I always tell people, if this were 35 years ago, Micah and I would probably be smoking on camera and not putting in seatbelts. And it was only because of nonprofits changing the law, changing policy. It's a whole different system, and we have a long ways to go for that. So that's the center in a nutshell.
Absolutely. And I would underscore that networking piece. We at Upward Transitions have a mantra that we're kind of the experts in our field, but we can't do the work that we do alone. And so, just getting to know the other nonprofits in the metro, but also the state that do the other pieces of work through the center has been really rewarding and life-giving to me as this Texan gets to know Oklahoma and what other people do here. And so that's been a real gift to me. And so we lean into others when we need their expertise, and we would hope that they lean on us too. And so that networking piece is huge. And I love that attitude of life-saving and prescriptions and those kind of things, because I think that's a really interesting way to go about it. But I can see that. That's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, our sector it's strong. One of those states, we have a lot of assets. We have a fantastic workforce, and it's just that all of that needs tuning up. It's sort of like dental hygiene everybody has to get their tune up every once in a while, and that's what we're here for. We have amazing assets, and we want to just continue helping to maintain those and letting nonprofits just run in a way that they're going to be able to carry out their missions as best as possible.
Well, and so just like us, your organization has definitely had to look at the atmosphere around it during COVID. And you all have been so intentional about keeping organizations like ours informed and equipped during this very different time of the last 6 to 9 months. So how would you describe the work of the center during COVID?
It has been very chaotic. I think it's been trying for a lot of people, and I don't say those terms very lightly. It's been really challenging, but our role, again, I think, is to inform, and it is to support and maintain all of those great assets that we have in the sector. The first thing that was an absolute priority for us was just letting nonprofits know they're not alone. Everybody is dealing with this. This is not unique to one place. It's not unique to one type of nonprofit, although I will say our arts nonprofits have probably taken the biggest hit of all of them. But the fact is that was our number one priority. But the second priority was to balance all this with the work of our philanthropists. Our philanthropists jumped in immediately, individual, corporate, and our foundations in a huge, huge way. On top of that, though, we had to balance that with making sure nonprofits got as much federal funding as they possibly could. So we were very out front on the Small Business Administration loans, the PPP loans. It was our own Senator Langford that made sure nonprofits had availability to those loans and not just private business. So that was a massive lifeline. We estimate that our nonprofits brought in about $150 million in federal funding loans. And that was a huge priority. But I think the third priority is really working with nonprofits so that they understand how to operate in a new normal. And the new normal is we're probably not going to be able to do special events for a while. The new normal is fundraising is going to be tough, and you're going to have to be assertive. You're going to have to communicate with your donors every day. And I'm a big fan of stewardship, and you don't even have to make the ask, but communicate, love your donors. So those were the three big things. But on top of it, what we found was nonprofits also wanted to hear from their peers. So we set up a call every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we just host a different topic. And we talk about everything we were talking about the evictions crisis. We talked about human resources. We've talked about fundraising. Tomorrow, we're just going to talk about employee benefits. What do you do at a time when you think, gosh, we got to tighten our belt? Well, you don't want to tighten it, be penny wise and pound foolish. So we're going to talk a lot about employee retention at a time that it's desperately needed. So those topics have been really important for nonprofits. We have about 80 to 100 people on those calls. There's kind of a consistent group and a drop-in group, which is typical, but that's what we do, and we just share knowledge. And frankly, we've done that mostly for free at the past 6 months. It was just we had to do it, and we have huge thanks for the Kirkpatrick Family Fund, the Kirkpatrick Foundation, and especially the Inasmuch Foundation, because they've been helping to support that work. They know how important it is, especially getting as much federal funding into the state as possible.
Yeah, well, you know that I'm on those calls weekly, and like I've found them incredibly valuable. Some of the time it's just reinforcing in my brain, we're on the right path, and and sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm going to write that down. We're going to go investigate that. It's again, just some of those things. It's just encouragement and motivation and being with peers about this work. And so, yeah, it's been very valuable, and I'm very appreciative. So it's been really nice.
Absolutely.
So is there one story from the past, I don't even know if I could say 6 to 9 months, maybe, last period that really kind of exemplifies in your mind what the center is?
So I've got a number, but I'm going to really focus on one that I think has had a big impact, especially in central Oklahoma. We ran a survey, and the needs from nonprofits, it was really obvious that nonprofits are scared about special events. And we've talked a lot about how we're going to have to wean ourselves off of that addiction. We love our special events, but you can't bring people together now. So what are we going to do? But the other big need that popped up was the most basic, and that is, how do we bring our nonprofits back into the office safely? And so we created a basically 45-page guide. I mean, everything down to, if you're a museum, how do you handle artifacts in a time of COVID? So we created this document about re-engagement, and it ended up being the national standard. So it was co-funded by about 12 different state associations and other universities that were working with nonprofits. I told them, I said, look, send me your logo. I'll switch out the cover photo that isn't so Oklahoma, and we'll just make this available for you guys. So we did that, and out of that came a group of funders who got together and said, nonprofits are going to need PPE, face masks, hand sanitizers, cleaning, the whole shebang, everything from thermometers to rubber gloves. Nonprofits are going to need this. And frankly, we didn't have it budgeted. And so this is going to just come out of thin air or money that we had reserved for something else. So the Inasmuch Foundation, the Kirkpatrick Family Fund, I know I'm going to forget somebody, but Cox Patients, Flourish OKC, all came together with a massive amount of money, about $130,000. And then they came to us and said, can you make this happen? And we said, absolutely. And so we took that money and we just bought a ton of PPE. I mean, and this was at a time where it was being traded like commodities. So the prices would go up and down every day. So we bought all of this PPE, everything from the sanitizer to gloves and masks, and we distributed it to nonprofits. And we ran a survey, we saw what they needed, and they came to us, they picked things up. Everybody was really happy with it. It will never be enough, but that's $130,000 that nonprofits are not going to have to spend out of their reserves. And so that's a huge, huge win. And I think it's one of a dozen or more stories out there of people stepping up for our nonprofit sector at a time when it's at its most vulnerable, when the need has never been greater. I mean, we're looking at trying to solve homelessness or prevent homelessness. We've got an eviction crisis coming up. The food insecurity is going to be a huge issue. Addiction, domestic violence, all of these are just really coming to a head at this incredibly traumatic time. And it's going to be incumbent upon nonprofits to do that work. And I always say, if you're called to do the work, where you see a need, you're called, and so for us in the nonprofit sector, whether the calling is spiritual or whether it's moral or ethical, or it's just because, my gosh, I want to have a job that means something to me, this work has never been more important. And so I just encourage all of us as nonprofits, but all of those people supporting your nonprofits, write that check to Upward Transition. Ask if you can volunteer. Time, talent, and treasure is huge. And whatever you can give right now, it's going to be stewarded in a way that that you're going to be taken care of, others are going to be taken care of, and more importantly, it's going to get our minds off of COVID. Frankly, go.
Yeah.
I sort of have my wonderful old grandfather behind me that says, hands not at work or not doing anything, and when we're doing the work, and whether that's time, talent, or treasure, it makes a big difference, and especially right now.
Yeah, and I think your guidance about leading with knowing the need is huge. I think that survey that you did modeled for us that knowing the need is important. We've been really intentional in our work, and we try to do that all the time with our case management, about not anticipating a need, but actually responding to an actual need. And so, during this time of COVID and chaos, we've had conversations with families, exactly what you're talking about, eviction and homelessness and food and insecurity and all of those things. And we're trying to respond to actual need and not assumed need. And so those conversations are really important. Making sure you're responding to an actual need is critical. And what I have found is that the people of Oklahoma are incredibly generous. And when you put an actual need in front of people in our community, they respond more than you ever thought they would. And so I'm not surprised that people stepped up with PPE money and did what they did in that story, Dan.
Well, absolutely. And, I also think that our donors, the more we can educate them about, there's the actual need, but also to say, look, we may be back in the future. We may be in 3 months, there's going to be more need. And in 6 months, there's going to be more need. And we need you. One of the things about what makes our donors so precious, and I don't care if you give $5, $5,000, or $5 million, we're all philanthropists at the end of the day. We donate money because we want to see a change. We don't donate money because we just give to an institution. I mean, back in the old days, my dad would write a lot of big checks to the scholarship fund at the University of Kansas. And as kids, we thought, he's just throwing his money away. What's wrong with him? He looked at us and he said, somebody put me through college and I got to put somebody through college. That's how that worked. But today, people want to see change. They change makers are what people want to see. And if you look at organizations right now that are changing the world or changing their community, they're the ones that are really successful at this. I don't see status quo as being something we can do any longer. We have to be willing to be bold and make changes, and we have to serve our communities with equity and with love. And that's not easy to do, and it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that the Center for Nonprofits is holding our feet to the fire, I guess, and guiding the way and kind of
we're grateful
keeping
to you.
Those conversations at the forefront.
Yeah, and we're grateful to you because, I'm one of those guys, I love nonprofits, and there isn't a mission that's not going to touch me in some way, but I don't have enough of me to do that work. I wish I could clone myself to go do it, but We always have this joke I tell in fundraising classes. I always say, do you like animals? And people, because I'll ask them for $1,000 and they just jump back like, oh, I don't have $1,000. I always say, do you like animals? And there's always a person in the room, oh yeah, I love animals. And I always say, do you like puppies? And they always say, oh yeah, of course I like puppies. And then I finish with, do you like dead puppies or live puppies? And I know it's the same thing, but some people don't realize that even giving $1,000 to a nonprofit animal shelter to spay and neuter 40 dogs means you're saving 60,000 lives that aren't going to get euthanized into the future. People need to understand that there's an outcome to everything that we donate to and everything that we support. And whether it's those puppies or their babies or people who are elderly or persons with disabilities, it is absolutely within our power to take a little piece of ourselves and change somebody else's life. And we have to do it on their terms, not on ours. I mean, I talk a lot about equity to say, no decisions about us without us. This is not about being someone's savior. This is about giving them the support for them to make those decisions and use that support to make the best decisions so that they are okay, that they're thriving. That's the real nature of the game. I always tell people it's not about teaching people to fish, because you can teach them to fish, but if they don't have a bait, they don't have the pole, have access to pond, what good does it do? It's time to lift up people, because lifting up means we have to exert as much energy as the other person to lift up. And that's the name of the game. That's what we do.
Yes. That is the song we sing around our office all the time. We not only are trying to infuse hope in their situation by trying to relieve the immediate pressure of their situation, but we are trying to assess and equip with the tools so that is sustainable. And so exactly, the song we sing around our office is $1,000 is all it takes to change the trajectory. And people don't realize that is the threshold, for relieving the pressure, but also statistics tell us that for those where the pressure is relieved and the tools are given with that $1,000, most of those never have to come back for assistance and are on their way to sustainable housing. That's it. And so
that's $1 million a month. I mean, if you can't afford to write $1,000 check, put it, take it out of your paycheck at $40 every paycheck or $80 a month, or go find 2 friends and split it.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, nobody should be afraid of the donation process. Every donation counts. And I remember, the story that Jenny Bass Carl told me. There was a woman who had donated consistently about $25 a month sometimes. Her cumulative giving to the organization was only about $950, but she left $3.5 million in her will to the organization because she cared about it. And she couldn't make that donation at the time, but she sure did later. So every dollar counts. Every moment of volunteer time counts. Every time you go and say, I know this great organization called Upward Transitions and I want to tell you about them. Every time somebody does that, that makes a difference. And it means a difference between somebody living on the street and somebody who's living in a safe, affordable home.
Exactly. All right. Well, now I'm excited. And now I have to go do more work.
I love that. You get excited and realize that with excitement comes a heck of a lot more work.
That's it. Woo! More stuff to do. Well, you have to go have at least some more grown-up chores to do because you're on vacation.
A battery's in my future to Firestone here in Tulsa. So
I am so glad that you spent some time with us today. Thank you so much, Dan.
I am too. And like I said, any nonprofit out there, if you need anything, Micah has my contact information, but go to our website, okcmp.org. We're here for you 24 hours a day. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And you can always watch a replay of this to catch it if you didn't catch it again, or check us out next Tuesday when we will have someone else to have a wonderful conversation with. Bye, everybody.
Awesome. Bye.